Hello, my name is Steve Gearhart, and this is the Unagi Observer. Thank you very much for watching today. Today we are going to talk about space Nazis, also known as the Zabi family in Gundam. Now, if you haven't watched the original Gundam series, I'm going to tell you to stop right now because there's going to be some spoilers, especially with the Zabi family, the family tree, the whole nine yards. So if you haven't watched Gundam, the original Gundam series, kind of stop here right now and then watch that and then come back, or you can continue watching whatever you want to do. It's up to you, but just to let you know, there are spoilers. So the question is, was the Zabi family, the ones who started the 1 Year War, were they actually Nazis? Were they actually space Nazis? So let's start this discussion by talking a little bit about the Zabi family right before the 1 Year War and right before the Side 3 became Munzo, and then eventually the Principality of Zeon. So let's talk about that first. Okay, so let's start with the Zabi family on Side 3. Side 3 was the original term of it. It was part of the many colonies out there called Sides, and they did various functions for the planet Earth. So Side 3 happened to be one of the larger ones, and the Zabi family became a rich family, an influential family in the local politics within the colony. So they were a very powerful family already to begin with. Another powerful family that they would compete with would be the Rawl family. So how did this all start? Well, this guy called Zeon Daikun was actually a street activist. He was out on the street calling for independence, for Side 3 to get their own independence, call themselves Munzo, and just be free from Earth, be their own people. And in the process of doing that, of course, he got into trouble, and the Earth Federation forces went to arrest him. So as he was hiding, Daegwin Zabi, the leader of the Zabi family, came across him and gave him shelter. Listened to what he had to say, and what Daikun had to say, and bought into it. And he was just like, yeah, you know what? Side 3 should be its own thing, its own people, its own culture. Look, we've already started our own culture. We have a ruling class. We have a manufacturer. We've got it all. We've got it all. Why do we need to be controlled by Earth? So Daegwin follows Daikun. Here's what I mean by that. As Daikun rises in political power within Side 3, he's bolstered by the Zabi family. The Zabi family is supporting him, and in return for that support, Daegwin Zabi's children become important parts of that political faction. So we all know he has a bunch of sons and a daughter. And at the time, it was Sasro, Giran, Dozel, Garma, of course, and Cassilia being the daughter. All of them had very important parts within Daikun's political faction, and they were very successful in promoting Daikun's goals. So then it gets to the point where Side 3 is starting to get more autonomy from Earth, and it becomes the day where Daikun goes, okay, now is the time for us to declare ourselves totally free and independent of Earth, and I'm going to be its leader. And as we all know, something mysterious happens, and in the middle of his famous speech, he and dies. Okay? So then, in the days that follow, there's a small little behind-the-scenes war between the Rawl family and the Zabi family. Two families that are very rich, very influential, and are part of the ruling class. They're vying for power to control Munzo, which is what they call themselves now. As a result of that power struggle, the Zabis win, but Sasro, one of the sons, is killed in an assassination, which is blamed on the Earth Federation terrorists. It was really Cassilia. So then the Zabi family, in turn, becomes the ruling party, the ruling powers. Daegwin Zabi becomes the ruler of Side 3, and as part of propaganda, they call themselves the Principality of Zeon. It was all manufactured so that the Zabis would control Side 3. Daegwin, from the beginning, knew that Side 3 would become independent eventually, and he wanted to be in control, not Daikun. See how it all works out? Okay, so now that we have a back history, let's go on to determine whether or not they were actually Nazis. Okay, so let's start off with making the case that they were Nazis. So let's look at that argument first. So the reason why a lot of viewers look, when they watch Gundam and they look at the Zabi family, and they instantly go, ah, Nazis. The reason for that is primarily Gihren, who becomes the leader of Zeon eventually. Gihren is very much a dictator. He's a controller. He's like his father Daegwin in that he wants Side 3, the Principality of Zeon, to be a power, to be independent. The problem is that they were already independent, and he launched an unnecessary war to gain independence. It's kind of weird, but that's kind of what he did. And Gihren was very good at manipulating people, and as Hitler was. Now, in 1930s Germany, Hitler, when he came to power, one of the things that he did was he invoked the idea of the Volkgeist, or the Volk, the people. And Hitler was talking about the German people in particular, that they had a destiny, that they were supposed to be greater than what they were, that they were supposed to be this race of people that would lead humanity to paradise, so to speak, almost. And that there were people holding them back. And that was Hitler's message. Gihren did a very similar message in his speeches, where he would talk about how Zeon is supposed to be free. We're a free people. We're not supposed to be the lackeys of the Earth Federation. We need to be free. And so he appealed to the idea that the people who lived in size out in space noids, as the term was coined, that you were special if you were a space noid. You had a purpose. You have a destiny. And it's greater than what you are being allowed to do. Aren't you angry? Don't you want to do something about this? Don't you want to fight a war? And of course, when you're, kind of browbeaten, when you're working for a government, the Earth Federation, which was not innocent of things, by the way, you tend to go, yeah, maybe I am supposed to be better than I am. Maybe I am supposed to be the part of the bigger race to lead humanity into paradise. Maybe that's what I'm supposed to be doing, instead of just being just lowly steel worker that the Earth Federation forces spit on. So it appeals. The message appeals. So Hitler did the same thing. Hitler made an appeal for the people to rise with him. Gihren made the same message to justify his one-year war. The other part that a lot of people go, the Zabis are Nazis, is a discussion between Gihren and his father, Daegwin, where Daegwin at this point is more or less just a figurehead in the series. He's not a true leader. Gihren is the true leader who makes things happen. Daegwin is just, he smiles in front of the camera, waves, whatever. And this is after the death of Garma. And so Gihren talks about how there's an overpopulation problem on Earth, and that might spread to the sides, the space colonies. And he comes up with a plan. And the plan is to basically get rid of the filth, and the true people will become the inheritors of all of this. Very much of a Hitler message. Hitler was very much of kind of like that, where he goes, we need these lands, the Germans need to be able to breathe, we need to be able to produce, we need to be able to manufacture. Hence, that's his justification for war and taking land. We're owed this. So Gihren is kind of doing the same thing to create better resources for the Principality of Zeon. The problem, of course, is that his plan involves killing millions of people. Hitler's plan included killing millions of people. But in my case against Nazis, you'll see where I make a difference between the two. So in that discussion, Daegwin brings up Hitler to Gihren, and Gihren goes, okay, yeah, I'm like Hitler. And he turns around and walks out of the room. Okay, so that's a pretty strong thing to say, the Zabis are Nazis. Okay. So here's the third thing. It has to do with symbolism and again with sort of invoking the people. If you look at the Zeon flag, it's red, predominantly red, has a white circle with a symbol on the inside of Zeon. Looks very much like a Nazi flag, right? Kind of has those tones to it. I'll get to you in the next part of this. I'll tell you why it isn't. But it seems like it's part of a Nazi flag. Now, when it's draped behind Garen when he's making these speeches, there's this humongous flag behind him, and he's the only guy at a podium, and he's like practically doing the Hitler thing. Rah, rah, rah. We're great, kill everybody, blah, 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 blah. So it looks very Nazi-esque. And there's also that horrible moment. It's after Garma's death. That horrible moment where he invokes Garma, gets people to, gets to the sadness, gets them worked up, and at the end he does the chilling thing of Sieg Zeon, which is basically victory. Sieg is victory. Sieg Zeon, Sieg Zeon, Sieg Zeon. Ugh, very chilling. And there's another strong argument that the Zabis are Nazis. Okay. So let's get into the argument that they aren't Nazis. So the reason why I brought up the Zabi family history is to point something out in the argument that the Zabis were not really Nazis. And that is this. The Zabi family was something that the Nazis in the real world hated. The Zabi family were a ruling class of elites. They thought they were better than everyone else, and they thought it was their destiny to rule over everybody else. Nazis in real-world Germany did not like those people. They had a problem with the elites. They had a problem with anyone who had anything that like Von in their name, believe it or not, because Von denoted in German denotes a sort of level of nobility, a lordship, if you will. And Nazis didn't like that because Nazis were regular people. They weren't elites. They weren't really businessmen. They weren't business leaders. They weren't like millionaires or billionaires. They were the people out. They were the people. And Hitler was able to tap into this and say, here are all the things that are wrong with Germany. And one of the many things that was wrong was the rich elites, which the Zabi family inside 3 were. They were rich elites. They were the ruling class. They would have been people that Hitler would not have liked. So there's argument 1 against why they're not really Nazis, because they're the object of what a Nazi would hate. Further, Degwin Zabi and everyone else except for Garen really thought that they should be free. And their freedom did not involve a mass war that involved the death of millions. They did not want that. They actually did not want that. Degwin himself did not want that. As a matter of fact, when you watch Origins, the anime Origins, you see him basically complaining about the fact that they're being too warlike. That the path to power needs to be a peaceful one. That yes, there might be some elements of violence that they might have to commit, but they don't need to go to war. They can do these little things behind the scenes to consolidate their power. Degwin Zabi was more of the Otto Bismarck era of Germany, which was the late 1800s, in the 1880s and 1890s under Kaiser Wilhelm. And so they sought expansion, they sought consolidation, but they weren't willing to go to war unless they absolutely had to. Degwin Zabi would have gone to war if he had to, but if he could find another way to get his power, he would have. So that's another argument against why they're not Nazis. And also the children, Cecilia, Garma, even Dolzel. None of them were bloodthirsty. None of them pointed to a group of people and said, you're the reason why we're failing. You're the reason why you're holding us back. They didn't do that. Garen himself didn't even really point at a group of people within his own nation Principality of Zeon, and said, "You're the reason why you're holding us back." Even he really didn't do that. So I'm leading up to the concept of genocide, and that conversation where you're talking about the killing of millions to prevent overpopulation versus the genocide of Hitler. Hitler went after people and killed them for what they were. And it wasn't so much as an expansion of land as it was, I hate you and therefore you should die. Göring was actually being oddly practical. He was basically saying, look, we have too many people. So if he could have invoked the Thanos solution and stabbed his fingers with the Infinity Gauntlet and kill everybody, he would have done that. That's the basis of his solution. The basis of his solution wasn't that he hated these people necessarily, but he just thought that they were there were too many, and he wanted to thin out the herd, so to speak, so that everyone had a fair share. So how do you do that? Well, he goes on to say, well, they're truly worthy people. Well, how do you determine that? That's where the problem is. That's where how some people say, well, they're Nazis. Well, even then, Göring, I think, wasn't so much as, we're going to put everyone in concentration camps and we're going to gas them and kill them or eject them in space or however we're going to kill them. I think his main method was just, I'm just going to go to war until the human population is decimated enough that everyone's got enough of a piece of the pie. I literally think that's all it was. I don't think he hated anyone. For the Nazis, they hated people. They hated the Jews. They hated Gypsies. They hated Russians. They just hated. Zombies didn't hate. They fought, and they fought hard, and they fought for a reason. But that reason wasn't out of hate. It was an idea. It was an idea of freedom, of being free. They just went about it a really bad way. And they had one guy who was a really bad apple, Göring, whose solution was, just kill everybody. So the last part of this is of course, symbols and symbology. And I mentioned the flag and how, in a certain way, the Zeon flag looks like a Nazi flag. But if you actually really look at that and you look at the Imperial Germany flag, it's really about imperialism. It's not Nazis. Here's a visual of the Zeon flag. Now here's the actual real-life German imperial flag. Do you see the similarity there? There's more of a similarity to Imperial Germany than it was towards Nazis, towards the swastika and things like that. And that was the other part of the Zabi family, the Zabi wish for themselves, which is to grow, to consolidate, to become a power equal of Earth. And in order to do that, they had to be able to expand, and just being side 3, they weren't able to do that. That's why they took over other sides. That's why they brought other people into the war with them. So, were the Zabis Nazis? No. Were they bad? Yes. Were they dictatorial? Yes. Were they tyrants? Absolutely. Were they fascists? No. What they were imperialists. What they were, and they invoked on their imperialism in a really bad way. You can fault them in the series for many, many things. Being Nazis is not one of them. Unless you disagree with me. If you disagree with me, cool. List it down below, but don't be a troll. Be nice about it, okay? Alright, so that's it for this week. Thank you very much for watching this. I know this is kind of a longer video. A little bit more cerebral than I'm used to, but I thought it was an interesting subject. I just happened to notice a clip from Gundam that I had forgotten about, where it was the Daegwin talking to Göring about being Hitler. I thought it was really interesting. Anyway, so that was the genesis of this week's topic. Thank you for watching. If you liked this video, please like it down below. And if you like what I do and you wish to subscribe, please subscribe. I would love it for you to subscribe. I love it when people subscribe. If I could give you a digital taco, I would give you a digital taco with as many toppings as you would want on it. Again, that just to show my appreciation. Anyway, thanks again for watching. My name is Steve Gerhardt. This is the Unagi Observer, and see you guys next time.